Hey folks, thanks for watching and tuning in to another episode of Hunt Talk Radio. This one's kind of interesting. So in about 15 minutes, I'm going to be on Facebook doing a Facebook Live event with backcountry hunters and anglers. They've invited their audience to have me talk about public land issues. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to also record this for possibly a YouTube podcast and our normal Hunt Talk Radio podcast. So if you see me doing all kinds of things this direction, it's because I've got two big computer screens lined up here. I'm going to have to go grab my phone when it's time, stick it in this, whatever you want to call it, this bracket, and then the phone's going to shoot me this way. And I got to try to do this all by myself. But I do have a guy running the camera over here, Marcus. And we're just going to see how it works. We might throw this in the trash. It might not work for anything. But given it so much relevant topics, relevant content to the topics that people ask out on our Hunt Talk forum, I thought, well, Hunt Talk Radio, Hunt Talk forum, Randy Newberg doing a YouTube or a Facebook Live event. Heck with it, let's try it. So anyhow, you're going to see us kind of switch modes here in a few minutes, but some of the things we're going to talk about in this Backcountry Hunters Facebook Live event is state land transfer. And if you go out to the Randy Newberg Hunter YouTube channel, you're going to see all kinds of videos. There's a whole series of videos there. Right now we've got number 1 through 5 in those episodes. It's called Stealing Your Public Lands. That whole series is, I think, 15 or 16 episodes long. And a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today on this Facebook Live seminar session is relevant to the same topic. We're going to talk about why Congress won't get off their butt and do what they're supposed to do. We're going to talk about why this idea of state transfer is such a facade to try to screw you out of your public lands. We're going to talk about anything and everything related to public lands and conservation. But before we get into that, we want to talk about our wonderful sponsors who make the podcast possible. First of all is the GoHunt.com guys. That group is just a huge supporter of us. They've been so generous to us, to our audience. If you go to their insider service, which is what I use for, well, you can't see everything that's spread out on the floor behind me here, and we're not going to show you, but it's a mess. Everything that is spread out on this floor, most of it now is consolidated in one place where I can be my own hunt planner, and that is the insider service from GoHunt.com. So go to GoHunt.com, click on the insider, and if you subscribe, they're going to have a free Gerber Vital blade knife. The Gerber Vital is this scalpel blade, replaceable blade knife that we use. You're going to get that for signing up for the insider. And then we have the great folks at Onyx Maps. You guys have heard me talk about the Onyx Maps GPS chips and now the new Hunt app for your iPhone or Droid smartphone. That new item is, I was over at their headquarters earlier this week, really getting schooled up on how that works. And if you go to onyxmaps.com and you want to subscribe to their Hunt app, download it, and then buy maps and other stuff for that, there's a promo code RANDY16, R-A-N-D-Y, the number 1, number 6. It's going to get you a large discount on anything that you buy there. And then also our great friends at Orion Coolers. Right now there's a contest that we have going on with the people who make the best coolers I've ever found, Orion Coolers. You go out to our Facebook page, there's details about it on our Instagram page, but the easiest place to go is to our YouTube page. And what it is, everyone who's a subscriber on our YouTube page is in the drawing for June to possibly win one of those Orion coolers. So that's a great company, great product. Just so excited to see one of you win one of those coolers. And we're going to be giving away an Orion cooler every month between now and the end of the year, you just have to go to either randynewberg.com or go to our Facebook page and see what you do to be in the drawing. No purchase is necessary. You're just going to get the chance to win a really good cooler. So anyhow, with that, some of you who are listening to this driving down the road or on your normal Stitcher or iTunes podcast feed, there's going to be a few times here where you hear or see some stuff go kind of funky as we try to do TV in one corner of this little room here, Facebook Live in another corner of this room, and a podcast in another corner of this room. So I guess since that's 3 things going on at once, we will call that true multitasking. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to see if I can get my phone hooked up live here for this Backcountry Hunters event and get people a little bit excited. Odds are, as many people as I get all wound up when it comes to public land issues, I don't know if this is going to be people mad at me, people cussing me. Who knows who's going to show up here, but I guess we're going to find out. Let's see. Go to my apps. Pages Manager. Oh, change page. I better find which page I want to be a part of here. See, here we go. I'm already messed up. Okay, let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. What's going on here? All right, post. Go live. All right, this could be dangerous. Describe your live video. B-H-A. I don't know if any of you listening have ever done this before, but I'm like a real babe in the woods here. We might have to edit this part out because you guys are like, that Newberg is as unhandy as anybody I've ever listened to. All right, public. We're 10 minutes ahead, but I'm going to say go live. We're going to 3, 2, 1, and we're going to see what happens out there on that page. Uh-oh. Are we working? I wonder if it's working here. Go to their page. Hopefully they have somebody over on their side of the fence that's ready to have these topics filtered and taken care of. All right, hosted by. All right, look at that, huh? Oh, I better turn my volume up. See if anybody is there yet. What the heck? I got thumbs flying all over across the screen here. Hey people, if you think I know what I'm doing, I got news for you. There's a very... What the heck? I got thumbs flying all over across the screen here. If you guys knew what I'm doing on my end, I got news for you. At least I know I've got audio. So would somebody, if you're listening to this and you say I don't have any audio, would you let me know? I've had to redo my entire office. I had to move the router to a different location, had to change the lighting. We're filming this for my podcast, my Randy Newberg Unfiltered Hunt Talk Radio podcast, and we're recording it for that podcast. So I've got all kinds of stuff going on here. But so I'm trying to figure out what I can say, what I can't say, because the good folks at Backcountry Hunters are probably saying, I don't know, we're giving Newberg the keys to our car here. Uh-oh. Due to poor wireless connection, we are trying to reconnect. I wonder what happened then. All right, there's all kinds of feeds going on here. It says there's 144 people watching me, but all right, it says we're back live again. You're back. All right, good. So I'm seeing some of the comments about all these animals behind me, and let's see, here's one. You should really leave this stuff up to your digital content manager, Matthew. You're right, Dan, I should. That's a reference to those of you who listen to my podcast. You know that my son Matthew kind of runs the digital side of this. And I had a malfunction right away. My router is sitting right here. And looks like I lost a little bit of the connection. So, all right, someone says great looking office. So you see this right up here, right above my finger? That is a Missouri Breaks public land bull elk from Montana. And my son shot that in 2005. And anyone who's applied for a Missouri Breaks bull elk tag in Montana, you know how difficult it is. And dang, due to poor wireless connection, your video has been paused. Well, that's as good of a wireless connection as I have, folks. So if we're having problems here with the connection, I can't tell you that it's going to get any better. So I hope you'll bear with me. So, all right, I was telling you about this bull elk, Missouri Breaks, public land, Montana. That buck there in the background, that's a Montana, southeast Montana whitetail buck. There's a rough grouse right above my finger that my wife shot up in the crazy mountains of Montana. Over this shoulder, you see a big, crazy-looking, non-typical mule deer. That one is a Colorado Unit 21 up by Rangeley, Colorado. And if you could see all the rest of the stuff here, this is called the Randy room at my house. And my wife's theory, she didn't grow up in a hunting family. So she says, Randy, in your family, that stuff might be considered art. In my family, those are dead animals. So get them upstairs in your Randy room. So right here, what you see, this is where I stand every day, do all my editing. This is where I make all the politicians mad by just doing what I do. And then all across this room over here, there's a bunch of Euro mounts of antelope. There's a mountain goat. There's 3 black bear rugs. I don't know if you can see this. Can you, right here by the end of my finger, you can see the makings of a pronghorn horn. That one is one I shot in Wyoming on public land, Unit 95. Let's see, what else do I have? Out in my reading room, we have, oh, wait, someone said that, I just saw something that says someone drew a 410-20 elks tag this year, their wife did. Well, that's this bull right here. That's 410-20. So whoever said that, I hope that you have good luck. And the way that I would do that, if I had that tag, I would go up into the breaks. I would scout a few days before season opens, because in the breaks, these bulls are going to be kind of going from that post-rut to a late season period, but there's still a little bit of bugling going on. And with this bull, we heard him every morning and every evening, and we walked in there, opening morning, there he was, telling the whole world about where he wanted to be. And as you can see, he's now here instead of living up in the break. So whoever had that tag, you're gonna have a fun hunt. Just get there and scout it and do your homework, and it'll be a good, really good public land hunt. All right, Texas backcountry hunters and anglers is growing fast. We're going to have Senator Cruz wearing a public land t-shirt in no time. Thumbs up on that one. Do you know anything about Colorado Unit 61? It took 15 years to snag the tag. Guess where I'm going to be this year? I spent 19 points for a public land elk hunt in Unit 61 in Colorado. So do I know anything about it now? No, but I will. So let's see, it's 6:56. I promised the guys that we wouldn't get started until 7 o'clock, so we got 4 more minutes here. At least Montana time we do. And let's see. I'm hoping to hunt the rubies in Nevada. Just watch your YouTube hunt. Yeah, I hope if you hunt the rubies like I did, that you don't have the rare liver condition that I do, and when you get up there, I hope your liver doesn't flare up, because the rubies are not a fun place, not a forgiving place for a guy who's not feeling that great. So, Max, you're the dude with the 61 tag in Colorado, I take it. You say first season, question mark? No, I drew the 3rd season, and the reason that I had to do that, or the reason I did it, is a lot of people are like, well, why would you do that? Is because I end up not having the schedule that everyone else has. I got to fit these hunts into certain time frames. So I had to do the 3rd season this year because it's the only time that fits my schedule. So someone says, are you here to talk about the approval of the bill to sue over federal public land in Idaho and Alaska? We'll talk about anything. So someone else says, live in the damn state of Oregon, and they live in the state of Oregon, and they still have not released the info on the draws. Are all other states this late? Well, we're still waiting to hear about Montana antelope, still waiting to hear about deer and pronghorn in Wyoming. I think a week from today we find out about elk, deer, and antelope in Idaho. So are you ever going to hunt the Northeast? I'm not sure. A lot of it is driven by schedules, calendars, the whole works, what our partners and sponsors want us to cover. So they mostly want us to focus on Western hunting. And so the odds of us getting to the Northeast is pretty slim. But it would be a lot better if Maine, Vermont, or New Hampshire would give me one of those wonderful moose tags they have. But I guess the population is on the decline, so. What region do you put in for in Wyoming? This year in Wyoming, I put in for a hunt I know I'm not going to draw, so I'm hoping that I draw my second choice. What do you think about whitetail in deep hills of West Virginia? I don't know, I've never had a chance to hunt there. Do you ever plan to duck hunt Colorado? Oh man, when we aren't filming, we're duck hunting a lot. And all my Montana friends are really going to be mad because I said this, but in Montana, in December and January, we have like the best duck hunting you'll ever find. Shh, don't tell everyone. So, ever think about hunting Kentucky elk? Yeah, they got public land there, or at least some of these state-private partnerships. I just need a tag. Do you have an outline of your talking points when you go over these? Oh, boy, that one scrolled too. I didn't get them all. So, details about the big giveaway for your listeners and your favorite part about hunting the big woods of northern Minnesota. Well, you'll have to go to randynewberg.com to get all the details about the giveaway, and they'll be out there starting July 1st. My favorite place to hunt in northern Minnesota is the little town I grew up in, which is Big Falls. So, all right, Minnesota Boundary Waters deer hunt by canoe is just waiting for me. All you have to do is drive across North Dakota. Yeah, I know. There's hunts waiting for me everywhere. I try to tell people I have the greatest job in the world doing what I do, and they're like, Randy, that's not even a job. How can you call this a job? So, to those of you on the Facebook Live feed, we've got a camera right over here that's filming me for my podcast, Randy Newberg Unfiltered, or really we call it Hunt Talk Radio, but every once in a while we get into political issues and it gets unfiltered. So we're recording that for our YouTube channel, and then we're recording audio for the podcast, and then we're doing this as the Facebook Live feed here for the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. So anyhow, now it is 7 o'clock, so I promised my good friends Lan and Tim and Ty and everyone over at Backcountry Hunters and Anglers that we're going to get into this Facebook Live session. And most of you know me, my platforms, all that I do, and how everything we do is public land hunting. If you see us do it on the TV show, you read about it out on our Hunt Talk forum, you can bet that you could go do the same hunt if you were lucky enough to acquire the tag. It's just kind of what I decided I wanted to do for my platforms. And as that, over the period of time, as someone who really does not give a crap about whether a politician is upset with me, I end up engaging in the political battles of public lands and public land policy. And as part of that, I'll just tell everyone up front that I am not a subscriber to the left or the right. I'm not a subscriber to the R, the D, the conservative, the liberal. My party is the party of hunting, fishing, and public access. And I don't care what side of the aisle a politician's from. If they are with us on public access, hunting, fishing, I'm supporting them. And if they're doing things that are not good for us, I'm not, how do I say it? I'm not going to cut them any slack. Let's just put it that way. So with that, if some of this stuff that some of you ask and some of the topics I get into, if this sounds a little bit quote unquote political, it's not by design. The reason that it ends up being political is if you think about how, it said we dropped, but we didn't drop. So anyhow, if you think about how we in the hunting and fishing and conservation world operate, we have what I will call the normal model, the 501c3, the advocacy models, and we do really good in public input, we do really good work on the ground, but we're not political animals. Those organizations that we've set up really aren't meant to be heavily engaged in the world of politics. So these other interest groups have taken our issues and brought them over into the political world. And that causes our issues to then become political instead of scientific, biological, or otherwise. So that's just how it goes. So let's talk about just state transfer of public lands. And I'm going to ramble on here so you can throw in whatever you want. Hey, Beast Mode Rude, I see you on there. But ask any question you want as I'm talking about this. Right now we have a series out on our YouTube channel, Randy Newberg Hunter. We're in episode number 5 out of, I think, 16. And it's talking about state transfer. It's talking about how we're going to do this in, I guess, how they're going to do this, what they call state transfer. And in our video series, we talk about the history of state lands. We talk about the costs of managing these lands. We talk about how the West was settled and everything else. So I'm just going to walk you through some basics that I think everybody needs to understand when a politician comes to you and says, hey, I think we should transfer these lands to the states. So first thing you need to know is state trust land. So in the West, when the states were admitted to the Union, the federal government said, we're going to give you a whole bunch of land. And when they got all this land, they signed, I guess we'll call it an agreement. It's called an enabling act. It's how they were admitted to the Union. So the state says, yeah, we're going to forego all future rights, claims, whatever. And in exchange, we're going to get millions of acres of land from the federal government. And the federal government granted those lands to these western states with the premise that this is what is going to fund your school system. So if you look at the constitutions and the statutes of all these western states, they have a lot of specific language related to state land boards. And in some states, people think that the state lands and the federal lands are kind of the same thing. Oh, well, in Minnesota, I can hunt state lands just like I can hunt federal lands. Well, you get out west and things change drastically. These state land boards are charged with managing those lands that they received for the benefit of the school system. And they have some really weird rules, and we'll get into a few of those, and we'll definitely answer any questions related to it. In our video series of Stealing Your Public Lands out on YouTube, we go into every one of these, state by state, topic by topic. So let's just walk through their scenario. Their scenario is, let's take all these federal lands, and it's, I think it's over 600 million acres. And they want to give that to the state land boards. So now the state land boards manage these lands rather than the BLM or the Forest Service or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Reclamation. So you think about, all right, if that happens, what does that mean for me? And I always like to use the most obvious example, and that's Colorado. The reason I use Colorado is if you hunt, fish, camp, hike, this one is like a no-brainer. And every other state has some equal or close to equal curious rules related to how they would manage these lands. So let's walk through the possibility that somehow Congress gets their way, some of these fringe operators, and they transfer 23 million acres, which is how much BLM and Forest Service Colorado has. So within the boundaries of this beautiful square state of Colorado that I love to hunt, they said, we're going to give these 23 million acres to the Colorado State Land Board. Well, first of all, if you go out to the Colorado State Land Board, there's big language right there that says, caution, Colorado state trust lands are not public lands. So right there should be your first indicator of, uh-oh, this could be bad for me. And right now, you as the general public do not have the right to hunt or fish or camp state lands, state trust lands in Colorado. You can hunt, fish, camp, hike those 23 million acres of BLM and Forest Service right now, but if they get transferred to the state land department and the state land board, off limits. And don't just trust me. Go right now in front of your computer, well, when we're done, not now. Google Colorado State Land Board. And you will see, if you click on the Recreation tab, it will say, unlike federal lands, Colorado state trust lands are not open for public recreation. Oh man, it says we just lost our connection. Let's try this. I just moved my router like right here on my lap, so pardon me while I take a drink. I think we lost our connection there just as I was explaining the Colorado example. So the Colorado website says, unlike federal lands, Colorado state trust lands are not open to public recreation. So think about that. We take 23 million acres of trust land, of BLM and Forest Service lands, and we make them Colorado state trust lands. In other words, they leave federal ownership under this notion of state transfer, and they go to the Colorado State Land Board to be managed as state trust lands. In that one action, you as a citizen of the United States lose access to 23 million acres of hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, you name it, mountain bike riding. I don't care who you are in the hunting world. If you, any of you who are on the feed here, send me an email or answer the question here to what I'm going to say. What can you think of that would, in just one decision, one little decision in one state, would cause us to lose 23 million acres of public access for hunting? There is none. I can't think of it. You think about that. That is an absolute disaster if you hunt, fish, recreate, whatever we do. And the other side will tell you, oh, well, we can get those laws changed, or don't worry about that, we'll take care of that later. Nah, I don't trust you folks. And I mean, you guys can all see me on the feed here. I might look dumb, but I'm not that dumb. There is no way I'm trusting you politicians that you're going to change the law after you get the land. No. So we can walk through every state as some weird example. Wyoming can't camp on their state lands. So let's assume we give 30 million acres of BLM and Forest Service lands to the state of Wyoming. And I don't know how many of you hunt deer in Region G in Wyoming. But if you do, you know that it's pretty much a backpack hunt, at least to get up to the high country in September when the best deer hunting is there. So think about if that was state land and you couldn't camp there. All right? You got to stay in a hotel or something in Big Piney or LaBarge or, who knows where, Green River. You got to drive an hour or so to the trailhead every morning. You got to hike 5 hours up the hill to get to where the deer are. You get to hunt for about a half hour because you can't camp up there like you could when it's Forest Service and BLM lands, because now under this state transfer idea, this is really state land, and in Wyoming, you can't camp on state land. So you hunt for a half hour, you got to come all the way back down, repeat that process. I mean, think about how much land, whether it's antelope hunting, whether it's elk hunting, deer hunting, how much land in Wyoming becomes essentially just off limits because of this entire notion of transferring it to the states, and the states have all these weird laws. New Mexico, same thing. You can't camp on state lands. All right? I've drawn the Gila elk tag 3 times. I'm going again this year. If I had to drive out there every day because I couldn't camp out there under this state land rule that New Mexico has, how am I going to hunt it? It's a 3-hour drive, then I got to hike, then it's a 3-hour drive back. That essentially makes all of this land in the Gila and other places in New Mexico inaccessible to us for those of us who want to hunt it. And I could go on and on and on with every state has these quirks. And then the real goal, just to give you the overview, in the 1980s, the sagebrush rebels, as they called themselves, came out with the idea of let's sell the public lands. All right? Let's have a discussion about that. And we did, and they got steamrolled. They got completely wiped out. So they kind of crawled back under a rock with this sell the public lands idea. And they decided, maybe we should call it something different. So now they've come back with this idea that they call it state transfer. It's really the same people, same motive, same end goal, but let's package it differently. Let's have the states do our dirty work for us, but let's get it in private hands. That's really, they used to have 2 dots on the line, public land to private hands. Now they said under state transfer, let's go from public lands to state and then to private hands. And why would that happen? Well, first of all, the states have sold millions and millions of acres. A lot of these states have sold more than 50% of the land that they got at statehood. Nevada has sold over 90%. And so the states are really good at selling these lands. And also, their constitutions and their statutes say if you can't make money on them, you got to sell them. All right? Think about wildfire costs. Do you think any state can sustain its state budget and pay for, well, I think last year, wildfire costs just for the Forest Service, might be the Forest Service and the BLM combined, was $1.8 billion. And a huge portion of that was in Idaho, Washington, Oregon, some in Montana, and some spread throughout the West. But using my home state of Montana, if we received a bill or incurred the cost of $400 million of firefighting costs, our state land board would have to sell the lands. That's what our statute says. Same thing in Idaho. Same thing in, you name it, whatever state. So someone's saying, is anyone else having problems with the feed? Is the audio going in and out for anybody else? Well, I don't know how much closer I can get the router to the source, but anyhow, I'm doing my best. That's one of the problems of living out here in the hinterland south of Bozeman, Montana. May not have the best connection in the world, so bear with me. So my point is that the entire idea of state transfer is just a BS scheme. I call it taking a turd and wrapping it in a pretty package and thinking that it's still not a turd. Terrible idea. Absolutely terrible idea. So with that, I always get into this discussion with politicians who want to tell me, oh, the states wouldn't sell the land. Yeah, they would. And if you doubt it, go look at their history, go look at their statutes, and that's what's going to happen. So when you hear the term state transfer, think they want to screw me out of my public lands. And here's the one that I always love. How many times have you heard some chucklehead, some supposed constitutional scholar who just fell off the turnip truck, tell you that it's unconstitutional for the federal government to own land? Really? Someone needs to go tell the Supreme Court justices that then, because case after case, time after time, everybody, every justice, every sitting Supreme Court has said the United States, the federal government, can own lands. It's not in violation of the Constitution. And here's kind of supporting evidence that that's how it is. I mean, that it is constitutional. Think about this. Don't you think these groups with all their money, all their politicians in their pockets, don't you think that they would have already went to court and fixed this if this was supposedly such an egregious violation? And I mean, I always tell them, I'm like, well, you guys are telling me it's unconstitutional. Why haven't you got all lawyered up and fixed this problem? And that usually shuts them up. And then there's also the recent evidence of what their motives are. And I just about fell over when I read this, but if you go, I think it was in February or March of this spring, 2016, there's a group called the Mountain States Legal Foundation. And they're a bunch of very smart attorneys. I mean, don't underestimate them. I might disagree with them, but I do understand that they are extremely, well studied. So this is a group, the Mountain States Legal Foundation, based in Denver, that is often the point of the spear on a lot of this public land sale, public transfer, whatever you want to call it. And this year, dang it, I lost the connection again. What the heck? Are we back, folks? I'm sorry about this. I got my router sitting right next to my phone and right next to my computer, so I don't know. Maybe we're going to have to call the cable company and say, what's the problem? But so I was just getting into the Mountain States Legal Foundation this spring in February or March, coming forth and saying it's time to sell the public lands. Well, I thought you guys wanted them transferred to the state. You're saying it's unconstitutional. If it's unconstitutional, why do you guys want Congress to sell them? You guys are a bunch of attorneys. You would think that the Mountain States Legal Foundation, if anyone could go and cure this, what they call egregious violation of the Constitution. They're smart. They know they would get their teeth handed to them if this case went to court. That's why the smart people on that side are not making this a judicial battle. They're trying to make it a legislative and congressional debate. So when you hear them talking about this stuff, this is just them softening the beachhead for their eventual push to try to convince Congress to do this. Judicially, the U.S. Supreme Court probably isn't even going to take a case related to that. But then you got the folks in Utah. You can't convince their legislature or otherwise. They appropriated $14 million to pay a bunch of attorneys to sue the federal government, that the federal government has to give them all the federal lands in Utah. I'm glad I am not a Utah taxpayer. I mean, you think about that. Every attorney has told them it's a stupid idea. Well, I shouldn't say every attorney. The attorneys that are going to make all the money representing the state of Utah haven't told them that, but all the other attorneys have. So this whole constitutional whatever is BS. They know it, you all know it, and it just, when people say that, you can kind of put that person on your list of knotheads, Kool-Aid drinkers, people who have like third grade reading comprehension. Those are usually the ones I end up in discussions with about constitutionality. And then I've had them say, well, you know, just because the judge, the U.S. Supreme Court said that, doesn't make it right, doesn't make it constitutional. And you think about the hypocrisy of that? Okay, the Constitution starts out with a basic framework of 3 places of power: executive, legislative, and judiciary. If you claim you're a constitutionalist, how can you ignore the decisions of the judiciary? That's like as fundamental to our system of government as anything. So anyhow, we could spend a 5-hour Facebook Live session on this whole constitutional issue. So anyhow, I'm thinking I'm going to start picking some questions here. And so if you see me scrolling through my computer, it's because I've got everything up on the screen right here. And I'm hoping that the good folks over at BHA, holy cow, look at this, I got 99 questions. How am I supposed to answer all those questions? All right, who we want here? What's that? Oh man, I'm trying to read some of these. Some of these are pretty, wow, some of these I couldn't answer. So right now, this is where we're at in this state transfer debate. It's pretty messed up. All of you who are following this, you're probably pretty engaged in it. But how many of you have friends, people who just, this isn't a topic of interest to them? And instantly they think, oh, well, you know, sounds pretty good. Well, when you roll back the covers and start talking about it, it doesn't sound very good, and your friends will quickly realize that. But that's one of the things the politicians, especially at the state level, are hoping that they can capitalize on. They know there's a huge level of frustration out there about all land management, whether it's state, whether it's federal. It's just, you know, when you defund the agencies, when you don't do your job in Congress by saying, oh, you got to, let me go on another tangent here. This is a perfect example of Congress wanting the agencies to fail. So, any of you research how firefighting gets funded? The Forest Service goes to Congress, they say, I need this budget. Congress always gives them a much smaller budget. And then, if you think about earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, how does Congress pay for those? They make an emergency appropriation through FEMA or through some other group. Now with wildfires, they tell the Forest Service, you got to go and fight all those fires out of your operating budget. Well, that doesn't leave anything left to manage. I mean, how do you manage roads and forests, and how do you do thinning projects? How do you do all the other things? You don't. You can't. And Congress knows that. Which gets me to the point that anytime someone is complaining about federal land management, and they're using that as the reason or the tool or the motive for why they should be transferred to the states, remind them that Congress could fix everything. There's not one law, not one rule, not one regulation that Congress could not fix. So how many of you have heard a congressperson, a senator, or a congressman say, oh, damn bureaucrats, damn feds, you know, the bureaucrats this or that? Well, guess who the damn feds are? It's Congress. So next time they try to tell you that, give it back to them. Say, you know what? You were elected to go to Congress and serve us. Your job is to manage these lands. And personally, I'm not letting them off the hook. As long as I got a breath in my body, they're not just giving these lands to some group or some private parties because they're too lazy to do what Congress is supposed to do. Congress is supposed to manage those lands by appropriation and by priority and by policy. And if they aren't going to do that, why are they even there? Get the bums out. Get someone else in there. So don't fall for the line that it's the damn feds. I don't care if it's a lawsuit. I don't care if it's a management plan, whatever. Every one of those happen because of the laws and the rules and policy Congress sets. It's not your local forester. It's not your local BLM range manager who sets the laws by which the BLM or Forest Service have to operate. It's Congress. Those are the people who you have to hold accountable. So, anyhow, you guys are probably getting tired of me ranting and raving about that, but all right. So, I'm trying to think, all right, if you want to see how state ownership of public lands is, come to Texas and bring your checkbook. Pat Fitzpatrick. Yeah, and Texas is a unique case because the way it was admitted to the Union, it was technically its own republic when it was brought to the Union. So it's definitely a much different scenario than all the other Western states. So I'm just looking through all of these as they scroll through here, and there's some really good ones. I don't know if you want to hear hunting stories, but I just got back from Alaska. I was on a spring black bear hunt, and I really messed that up. I mean, I really messed it up. When you guys see this on TV, I'm so embarrassed. I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but I was up on the Tongass National Forest in southeast Alaska. And if you want to have a public land experience, we go up there. We fly from Bozeman, Montana, go to Petersburg or any of the other communities. Then we fly out to a beach and we hunt bears. And we do that. Tags, airline, everything for less than $2,000 bucks. If you can find a better way to spend $2,000 bucks for a week of enjoying your public lands, tell me what it is. Because I have so much fun in Alaska that even when I fumble and pass up Boone and Crockett type bears, I still have a good time. So, and that gets me to the point of why I'm so passionate and why backcountry hunters and anglers, all their volunteers, all their members, all their supporters, why they're so passionate about this is, where else in the world can you go where just an average guy from wherever can go to an amazing place like Alaska, go to an amazing place like New Mexico, and as long as you have a tag in your pocket, you have an experience that is, it's what most people think is reserved for the wealthy. In America, that experience, because of public lands, is there for all of us. It's just, that's what drives most of you. It's what drives me. It's why, as long as I'm standing here, as long as I can stand upright, as long as I can advocate on behalf of public lands, I'm going to do it. It's okay. Here's a good one. Can you explain where the rhetoric about BHA being a green group is coming from? Yeah, it's coming from a bunch of dumbass lobbyists in Washington, D.C. That's the simple answer. People, that whole green decoy thing, if you knew who was behind it, both in terms of money and in terms of messaging, you'd just shake your head. And again, back to that reading comprehension thing, the people who fall for that, the ones who want to drink Kool-Aid and have other people form their opinions, it's really not even worth a discussion, but I've seen it come up here a couple times across the feed. It just, whatever. I was at the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous in Spokane last year, and then in Missoula this year. And I will say, at that rendezvous, there are more badass backcountry backpack hunters in one room at that ballroom than probably any place I go to in all my travels. And if people want to say that, oh, you backpack guys are a bunch of whatever, knock yourself out. Those guys sure are shooting a lot of public land elk, a lot of public land deer, catching a lot of public stream fish. It's so hard to even take them serious when they bring that stuff up. But so, all right, let's see. How can we find out who's behind it? Well, I can tell you who's behind it. If you go out to my Hunt Talk forum, we've talked about this to no end. And it's a group, Berman and Associates in Washington, D.C. It's just standard. Anytime, there's an old saying that says, you're over some valuable targets when you start getting a lot of flack. And the fact that we in the hunting community who are viewed as obstructionists to some, the fact that we're getting all this flack tells you we're over the right targets. So keep going, head down, committed, passionate, not emotional, but passionate, and keep after it. If people, there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be the critics. And there's a guy who wrote about the man in the arena. And in the man in the arena, he talked about the critic. And you all know who I'm talking about. Okay, he had lots of critics in his political life, in his social life. All those people who thought that Theodore Roosevelt was off his rock. Have you seen any of them and their faces end up on Mount Rushmore? No. Why? Because he stuck with it. He had the passion, he had the vision, he had the actual belief that this is more important than anything else he could do. And we have hundreds of millions of acres of public land because of him. He's on Mount Rushmore. And now 110 years later, we got the same kind of story unfolding. History's repeating itself. Same group of fringe politicians coming forth and saying, you know what, even though America loves these public lands, even though America uses them, they're a huge part of our economy, a huge part of our recreation, ideologically, we don't think they should be there. Well, too bad. Because if you want to do something about it, Mr. Politician, Mr. Ideologue, you're probably going to have to come through me. You're probably going to have to come through all the BHA folks, all the other advocates, all the obstructionists in the hunting and fishing and public land community. Bring it on. Just bring it on. Come on down. I'm like over this. I grew up in a logging family, so I got to be careful. My wife is downstairs and she hears the volume going up and down here. I'm sure she's thinking this guy's going to start swearing any minute. It's just how I grew up, so I'm trying not to do that. But I get to a point where I'm just like, you know what, I'm over it, come on. And that's where I'm at politically with these bunch of wingnut screwball fruit baskets that think you don't know what you're talking about. And really, let me tell you this funny story, okay? I live in Montana. In Montana, we have this senator, his name is William Clark. We had. And some of you may not know that back in the late 1800s, I think it got changed in the 1910 or 20s. The state legislature used to vote who was going to be your senator to go to D.C. Well, we had this dude in Montana who was known to be a corrupt dude, and I think it was I should have my dates better, but it's right at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s. Big news all across the country that this guy from Montana gets caught buying off the state legislature for the purposes of he wants to buy their vote to appoint him to be the senator from Montana to go to Washington, D.C. And when he was interviewed by the national press, he just matter-of-factly said, well, I've never bought a politician who wasn't for sale. Well, same applies today. You can't buy a politician who isn't for sale. And a lot of these politicians trying to screw you out of your public lands should have a big sold sign across their forehead. I mean, I don't know if they're like NASCAR guys where they walk around with certain patches of who's bought and paid them. But William Clark, as crooked as he was, he had a piece of wisdom. You can't buy a politician who isn't for sale. And when I say that to the politicians, oh man, they get wound up. But that's part of the fun of being an outsider, is you can say that stuff, and too bad for them. But think about that. Next time one of these politicians comes out promoting this, I always think about what's their real motive? What's behind their position? Because we all know that the odds are, I'm going here to try get some of your comments on my computer screen. The odds are you don't agree with some of these weird, strange ideas they have. The odds are your neighbors, your fellow friends, hunters, everything else, they don't share that crazy idea. And it makes you wonder, why is a politician promoting this when everybody else is against it? And it gets back to that, in my mind anyhow, gets back to the old, you can't buy a politician who isn't for sale. All right, so now I got some emails here. I'm trying to, someone says, Randy, I'd like to see your Stealing Our Public Land video series on my national TV program. You would reach a bigger audience. Any chance of that? Unfortunately, not a very good chance on cable TV, which is why we have the YouTube platform. And Earl, thanks for bringing that up. But if anybody wants to, you can go out to YouTube and type in Randy Newberg Hunter. And we're doing this whole series about state transfer, about all kinds of other stuff. And let's see, Wesley, we've had a public lands rally at the Roundhouse in New Mexico during the legislative session every year for the last several years. It also helps to get to know your state senators and representatives in your district. That is a piece, that is a gem right there of information. I hear so many people who think that, they won't listen to me. You know what? If you want to see fear in the eyes of a politician, show up with about 10 of your hunting, fishing pals and let them know just how you feel. They start paying attention. If you're going to communicate with them via email and writing, don't use form letters. Send them personal emails, personal phone calls. Personal letters and emails are way more effective than just a form letter. And start your own little rod and gun clubs, whatever it is. It doesn't even need to be that. It might just be your elk camp buddies or whatever. It is just that point right there. Get to know your state senator and representatives in your district. That's where it starts. Tip O'Neill, who was, he spent a lot of time in the world of politics. Those of you my age and older, and I'm getting gray and 51, you guys have, my age and older, you know the Tip O'Neill story. You understand how this is kind of getting to all politics is local. Well, if they can get politics away from being local, they can control it more, because that's where the lobbyists play. If you stay engaged, like Wesley just said here, know your state rep, know your state senator, that keeps politics local. And when it stays local, we win. We have the grassroots people in the hunting, fishing, outdoor world. We have an army of foot soldiers that scares these people. Anyone who wants to take your public lands. The reason they want that debate in DC is that's a place where the games get played. They don't want that debate out here on the public, or on the state level, on the local level. Because we're going to win, and they know it. We're going to steamroll them. So, let's see. How can I explain the public land conundrum to a constitutional libertarian? You know what? The odds probably are you can't. They have a belief system. Just, religions are a belief system. There's some people like to call it ideologues, whatever. A lot of people who are constitutional libertarians are maybe, they're some people are just their own made-up brand of something. And I quickly identify, is this person open-minded, or is this person someone who I can have a discussion with? or not have a discussion with, I should say. If they're open-minded, we can have a discussion about the pluses and minuses. If they just instantly start hanging tags and labels on everybody and they're ranting and raving, you know what? I quickly realize that this person probably isn't interested in a discussion. They just want to vent, and don't even waste your time with people like that. So, let's see what else we got here. We've got, I can't even read them all. You guys are leaving way too many comments for a guy like me. I'm behind the curve here. All right, here comes another one. All right. More on Utah. All right. Brian, Governor Herbert actually hasn't included how he's trying to get federal lands turned over to state control in his re-election campaign commercial. Well, I hope he ends up with the same fate as Ted Cruz when Ted Cruz made that his platform I think when he ran commercials in Nevada, Utah, and Idaho. Ted Cruz said we got to sell the public lands. And if Governor Herbert is saying that in Utah, I hope the Utah folks stand up and reject it. That's really where it's going to end, is enough punters, enough anglers, enough advocates of public lands are going to stand up and get some of these people unelected, as I call it. We're really good at getting people unelected. And I remind politicians of that quite frequently, that, you know what, you might not like us, but we can get you unelected. So Tim's forwarding all kinds of questions to me here. All right, what was this one? Politicians only care about being re-elected. So let's start with one and go from there. Thanks, that comes from Matt. That's good advice. I hope it is cause for everybody to kind of think about this being an election year. I have two comments on election years. Obviously get to know people, get engaged. A lot of times you'd be surprised how open-minded some of these people can be. Many times they take a position counter to what we believe because we've not approached them. The other side has. But even if someone wins the election this fall at your state level, your local level, whatever, and they don't necessarily feel like someone you're comfortable with, that's not cause to give up. I always remind people, we vote once every 4 years or every 2 years, but there's 365 days in a year that we have to be advocating for our cause. Whether that's going to open houses, giving public comment, writing public comment, whatever it is, it's something that you can't just view voting, as important as voting is, it can't be the only thing you can do. You have to stay engaged. Oh, let's see. Want to get boots on the ground and not just donate my $25. Where do I start? Oh man, there's all kinds of projects. I mean, here in Montana, our BHA chapter is very active. You go to the BHA website and go to their state chapters. Odds are their state chapters are going to be having activities going on that you can actually get your boots on the ground and do it. And I like that question. The reason I grabbed that question is we all like to say, well, I pay my excise taxes when I buy a firearm or ammo, and I buy my license, and I send my $20 or $30 into an organization, and that used to be enough, but it's not anymore. As we become a smaller and smaller percentage of our greater population, we have to do more. It's incumbent on all of us. If we want this to be there tomorrow, that's what we have to do. There's really no way around it. It's just simple math. The job is getting bigger. The cause is getting more important. And as a percentage, we're a smaller percentage. So do the math. That means there's a bigger burden on all of us. So when I hear people say, I want to do more, I want to get involved, I smile and say, yeah, that's... And I know that I get a lot of people who stop me and say, well, Randy, I don't have your platforms, or I don't this, or I don't that. and I get it. You know, in today's world, we're all so busy. You know, a lot of times we have the 2-spouse income household. We have, you know, kids and all their activities. But most everybody has either, I call it the 3 T's, time, talent, or treasure. And very few of us have all of those, but just about all of you have one of them. And it's, you know, if you can donate a little time, or you can donate some of your talent, or if you're, you know, in a fortunate position and you can donate some of your treasure, it helps. And I'm sure every group out there would say, it doesn't matter necessarily what group, just be there, be involved, be engaged. And if I could, I wish we could show the video of what it means to be engaged, boots on the ground. In Montana, in the 2013 legislative session, there was what we called an access rally at the Capitol. And we showed up. And I don't know how many of us were there. I heard reports from 300 to 500. Trying to reconnect. All right. Are we reconnected yet, or what's the deal here? Come on. All right. Sorry about that. I'll go back to this Capitol rally. So there were like 300 to 500 hunters in our blaze orange, our camo, and we showed up. And if you could have seen the look on those fringe element politicians when we showed up, they were looking at each other like, whose idea was this? How do we put this can of whoop ass back in the bottle? And it's that kind of grassroots stuff. It's that local stuff. It's that being a little more engaged than just the $25 membership fee. That is the kind of stuff that makes a difference. I can tell you that in Montana and other states where you've seen a mobilization like that, the politicians take note. Man, and I look at the groups that were there. You know, there were the Backcountry guys there, the TRCP, state level, national level, little local rod and gun clubs. We were all there. And that's what it's going to take going forward to make a difference and protect these public lands. It's not going to be some TV guy blowing and carrying on that's going to do it. It's going to be every one of us feeling that it's that important that we're going to do what little we can, whatever our time or talent or treasure allows. Someone asked the question, how do we get the non-hunting groups involved in the public land issue? You know, that's very good question. There's a lot of discussion about that. In fact, a lot of the non-hunting users of public lands have reached out to me and said, Randy, how can we get our membership as engaged as you hunting people are? And so there's a lot of discussion going on about that. I can't say I have the answers other than to say I think it's going to happen. I think we, with our history, our legacy of where we've come from in the hunting world, how we've been a leader in it in our country, how we've been the leader in funding it for sure, that gives us a place of admiration for other groups when they say, how do we get our army as dedicated and as involved as that hunting army over there? So there's groups working on that, and I think we're going to make some progress, and it'll be really, really good stuff. So let's see. Boy, Tim, I'm trying to sort through all these. When I say Tim, I'm talking about Tim Brass. Tim is the guy from BHA who's over here on the other end sending me all kinds of good stuff. Oh, I'd like to scroll through on my phone, but that might not be the right thing to do either, because then I'm going to skip over some of these questions. Other hunting stuff. Wow. I'm going to give you a little bit of a, what would I call it? A connection of why backcountry hunting is so important to me. And we have an episode that's going to air on our Fresh Tracks TV show on July 3rd. And finally, I was able to convince the Forest Service to give me a permit to film in a wilderness area. And I sent them this big document, and they thought about it, and they said, you know what? your message, what you told us in that document, that is a message we want to have out there. So normally we in the TV world can't get permitted for wilderness areas. They made an exception for me, and it's a remarkable hunt in that it is not a huge wilderness area, but it's a roadless area. And a fire came through there and created the most unbelievable elk habitat I've seen. And we go in there into this wilderness spot, and the elk are, I think in the one spot, the opening morning, we counted 28, 29 bulls from one little knob. And the reason that I wanted to tell that story is, so if the wilderness area is this big, they don't give away too many tags in the wilderness area, but that serves as this reservoir that there's elk that just flow out of there. And the number of tags they give in the periphery area is large. And so I kind of think about the wilderness area, these backcountry areas are sort of like a bucket that all of the rainwater is pouring into. And as that bucket's filled, all the area around the bucket greens up and shares the benefit of this reservoir that we would call wilderness area. Wilderness areas usually are going to end up with better age class just because how wilderness hunting is. It's more of a challenge. Tags are usually easier to get in wilderness areas, and the length of seasons and restrictions on weapon types is usually less. So these backcountry areas, that's where I hunt. And a lot of people, when they see the TV show, they're like, Randy, you're always packing these elk out on your back. Yeah, because I want to go where the elk are. And elk go where people don't want to go. And if I want to be consistently lucky, if you want to call it lucky, or fortunate, consistently fortunate to fill my tag when I'm elk hunting, I'm looking for the places other hunters might give a second thought and say, I don't really want to do that. That's where I'm going. Because the elk know the hunters don't want to go in there. And lost our connection again. Man, I don't know. I'm going to have to call my service. Sorry, folks. We lost our connection again. And no, this is just water. So, anyhow, point being, these wilderness areas, roadless areas really serve as an amazing reservoir. Even if you aren't hunting in those spots, the peripheral areas provide fantastic hunting, usually provide an abundance of tags that even the non-wilderness, non-backpack hunter benefits from that. So, all right, let's see. Someone says, will Wyoming's wilderness law ever be changed? This relates to hunting in Wyoming. If you're a non-resident, you need to be accompanied by a guide or by a Wyoming resident who offers to be your, they have a term for it, I'm going to say assistant or companion. They have to be right there with you like a guide. It's one of those weird things that you just shake your head and say, why is it? I mean, what value does that legislation serve? It keeps us residents, or us non-residents, from applying in wilderness areas unless we want to hire a guide. But you could go there and fish. You could go in that wilderness area and camp. You could go in that wilderness area and hike. So don't tell me it's a safety thing. I mean, come on. I can go to Alaska, I can go to the Brooks Range and live up there for 2 weeks and no one's concerned about my safety. But if I go to Wyoming, right across this is kind of funny. So the AB Wilderness in Montana is partly in Wyoming and partly in Montana. If I'm on the Montana side, evidently I'm not in danger. I'm allowed to hunt without a guide on the Montana side, but as quick as I step over to the Wyoming side, I must lose all my faculties because then I got to hire a guide because I'm a non-resident. Anyhow, that's so. Will it ever be challenged? I don't know. We have this whole thing about state rights when it comes to wildlife, and the states can manage how they want. They are the trustees of the wildlife and the allocation of that opportunity within their state boundary. So odds are someone might challenge it, but I suspect they might end up losing. So, and I look at all the bigger issues we have in front of us. We got a lot bigger issues than that at this time, so I don't really make that a big issue for myself. Some might say I should, but I really don't. All right. Well, that comment, I'm not addressing that comment. The BHA guys will get in trouble. There's some good humor in some of these comments. It's nice to see people can have a sense of humor about this, because personally, I take myself, I don't have any seriousness about who I am and what I do. A good friend that is often on my TV show, he says, Randy, the mere fact that you have a TV show shows you how far a line of BS can get you in America. And I always think about that, and it's really true, because I'm just like, I'm so below average in everything that I do that I don't want anyone to think that I have all the answers. I don't. None of us do. But there's a lot of politicians who think they have all the answers. And we all know that they don't. So, all right, Tim, what else we got here? You want me to go through all of these, or just cherry pick a few of them? Can I tell another hunting story? I was on the Grand Mesa of Colorado last year, and you're going to see this as I think the second episode of our TV series this year. And I'm here to report, whatever you want to call it, that a mule deer that I've been chasing, I don't know, I've just loved chasing big mule deer. I've never shot what I'd call a big mule deer, and that's fine. But I missed him. Oh man. Stupid. But that's what I love about hunting. That's what I love about public lands, because this deer, we were all set up on him. And maybe I shouldn't say this is what I love about public lands, because everybody would be frustrated in this instance. Deer's bedded. We're waiting for him to get up out of his bed and come towards us. Here comes another hunter, an elk hunter. I'm a deer hunter. Here comes an elk hunter, walks up, bumps him, he's gone. Took me 3 days to find him again. And when you know, I missed him when I finally found him. So, but all right, here comes another big set of questions and emails. Let's see. Oh, that one's not from Tim. Someone else. Okay. Someone says, how do you feel about the designation of the white clouds that went through in Idaho? I loved it. I'll be honest. I'm not that familiar with the legislation that created the White Cloud Wilderness, other than I know Senator Mike Simpson, or Representative Mike Simpson from Idaho. He took a lot of heat about that. And if you understand politics in D.C., Congressman Simpson is a Republican. You should go Google Congressman Simpson's testimony about 2 months ago. I think it was the House Natural Resource Committee. He let them hear about his ideas on state transfer and what a stupid idea it was. I was like, go get him. Anyhow, this white clouds, from what I understand, Congressman Simpson was one of the key people in seeing that it got passed. And unfortunately, he took a lot of heat for it. It's like, you know what? If that's what the people of Idaho wanted, his job is to go there and represent the people of Idaho. And to see all the phony attacks that came in and were directed at him, it's really disappointing. But I'm a pretty big fan of Mike Simpson in Idaho. He's stepped in, him and Senator Tester from Montana. That's how we got through the wolf issue in Idaho and Montana in 2011. It was in court forever. They got a bill attached, or a rider attached. It was called the Simpson-Tester rider. I'm thankful for that. Do you have any grizzly stories, is one of the questions. Yeah, I do. In fact, we just finished editing the episode here in southwest Montana. Last year, myself and Corey Jacobson were archery hunting, and every day we ran into grizzly bears. Not the bears themselves, but like such fresh tracks. You go in there in the morning with your headlamp on, you're not seeing any tracks, you come out and here's fresh tracks right next to your tracks. You're like, uh-oh, do we have permission from this guy? Is he gonna be mad that we're in here? And as far as grizzly stories, I've had 2 close encounters with grizzlies. Both times I went this way, they went that way. The closest one I was archery hunting, and I was calling some elk and they took off. And so I kept walking up this little knoll, and right at the peak of the knoll, as I'm coming up, this grizzly's coming up the other side, and we come face to face at probably, 20 yards. And fortunately for me, he didn't want anything to do with me, and he took off. Otherwise, who knows, I might be bear dung and wouldn't be standing here talking to you today. So, how long do you feel it will be for the grizzly bear to get delisted in the lower 48, and will you be the first to film it after the backlash of the wolf hunt? I don't know how long delisting will take. Like everything else, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of litigation related to that. My first jump into the ESA laws or rules and situation was in 1999. Governor Roscoe of Montana appointed me and 4 other Montanans to be on the Governor Grizzly Bear Roundtable, and along with 5 from Wyoming and 5 from Idaho, the 15 of us worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to come up with the conservation strategy that's being used and being decided on today. So I've had a lot of time in discussing grizzly bears. So seeing it right now and seeing where it is and seeing it's close to delisting is pretty exciting for me, because I've been involved in it for 16, 17 years. So what would you consider the most threatened piece of public land that is subject to be lost in the near future? Whew. Boy, that's a hard one, but a good one. I could give you a long list of certain pieces of public land that I'm worried about. And a lot of times how I'm worried about them is the fact that a lot of state laws don't, the default is not that you can have public access. So I'm going to use my state of Montana. There's a lot of our lands where I'll call them new age landowners. People are coming in, buying big ranches, and they're blocking off county roads. In Montana, it's up to the county to prove it was a public road, rather than up to the landowner to prove it's not a public road. So we've lost lots and lots of access in Montana and in other states where people just block a road and say, well, prove that I'm wrong. That's a problem. So I know that's not a specific piece that Jason was asking about, but it's a very common thing that's going on. It's a trend I've seen escalating heavily in the last probably 10 years. And it really is, it's tough. I trying to get these state legislatures to change that dynamic that says, you know what, if it's been open and you want to lock it, you better prove that it's private, rather than lock it and then the public, with all the very limited resources the counties have and the states have, force them to have to go do it. In effect, you're just leaving it to the whim of who that landowner might be. All right, and this question is, can you touch on one of BHA's more important causes, that being ATV use, enforcement, and restrictions? When I travel a lot, and this is going to age me a little bit, a lot of people say, man, I can't believe you guys have such long seasons in Montana where you live. And they're right. We get 6 weeks of archery season on our general tag, followed by 5 weeks of rifle season. So that's 11 weeks. And almost, well over 70% of the state is general as far as total elk hunting opportunity. And I tell them, well, that didn't necessarily happen by accident. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, when motorized travel was really getting to be a big issue on BLM lands, Forest Service lands, the state of Montana, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks held a bunch of open house hearings at that time and said, all right, here's where we're at, folks. We can continue to let motorized travel go the direction it is. But if you do, understand we're probably going to have to go to limited entry drawings, shorter seasons, select your weapons, fewer general areas. And or the alternative is we will work with the Forest Service and BLM for seasonal restrictions, temporary restrictions, possibly permanent travel restrictions. And you'll be able to keep your long seasons, your large general areas. So here we are in Montana now, 25 years later, 22 years later, and we still have 11 weeks of combined archery and rifle. We still have great amounts of opportunity. And so I use that as an example of how people got together, hunters, and worked on this and said, you know what, let's make a collective decision about this topic. Let's not run over into our camps of motorized, non-motorized, da-da-da. Let's do what we can to think of what's best for opportunity. And there's no state I know of that gives you longer opportunity to hunt and do the things we love to do in elk season than Montana does. So it's a big issue. I know BHA has been very involved in it. And a lot of it can happen at the planning level, not just at the, okay, that's the plan, now let's enforce it. So there's a couple places that you can make a difference in this motorized travel issue. But and it's not necessarily a political statement. Just understand that all the science shows that, and I say it in my seminars, elk and motors don't mix. When I plan my hunt, I look at the map and where are the motorized trails and roads? I just cross those off. Anything within a mile of either side, I cross it off. And by the time I'm done in a heavily roaded area, I've eliminated a lot of the unit. And I may have never been there before, but now by just eliminating the motorized areas, I got not a whole lot left to worry about. I've got very few places left on my map that I know elk are probably going to be. So, oh, here's the landmine. I knew someone would bring this up. Brent says, dare I say it, corner crossing. Those of you who live in the West probably know what corner crossing is, but so I'm going to hold up where these two sheets of paper meet at the corner. These two white sheets are public land. The up here above and below are private land. And the question is, can I jump at that infinitesimal, minute area? Can I cross where those two pieces of white meet? So I'd stay on this piece of public and jump over to this piece of public. That's what corner crossing is about. Most states don't really have a final decision on it. If you want to get in a big battle with a bunch of legislators, bring it up as a topic. For me, I just want to know, is it a violation? Is it allowed or not allowed? Just let's get it decided and move forward. When you think about it logically, you know, if the point of intersection is like the head of a pin, and you step from one public piece to another public piece over that corner, have you trespassed? That seems to be the question nobody can answer. And there's really two forms of trespass. There's criminal trespass and civil trespass. Criminal trespass is what your state law says constitutes trespassing as a criminal violation. And there's civil trespass, that is you and I get in a civil lawsuit about I've trespassed and damaged you. Civil suits are always about what are the damages for what has happened. So, you know, if you talk to some attorneys, they'll tell you that when the neighbor kid throws the football in your backyard and he comes and gets it, that's technically civil trespass. You know, what were the damages to you when the kid came and got his football? 0. So in civil trespass, if you step over the corner from one public to the other public, how much have you damaged the 2 other pieces of private? 0. So it's going to take much smarter legal mind. I don't have a legal mind, so it's going to take time to sort that one out. Braxton, what's your opinion on using pack llamas for your hunts? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you after I get done in Idaho in December, because my buddy Bo down in Idaho who rents llamas, he's offering to come and give me a test run. So if in future years you see me with a string of llamas, there's a very good chance of that because Bo talked me into it. Personally, I've not used them. I grew up in a logging family, not a horse family, and we didn't have horses. So me and horses just don't get along real well. They know that I'm not comfortable around them, and I view horses as automobiles that don't have a throttle mechanism or a steering control. me and horses in the mountains, I better have an orthopedic guy on speed dial, and that's why llamas have a lot more appeal to me. Lower maintenance, I'm not going to get bucked off, but who knows, after I use them, maybe I'll have a different idea, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll help, especially when we have to carry so much production gear. If you guys saw us going into a camp, you'd think we ran away from the circus or something. It's hard for us just from a production standpoint. But what tags did you draw this year, Randy? I don't know. I should swear myself to secrecy on that one. I've been lucky, but part of this is I apply in every state that has limited entry drawings. I have to. I need 10 to 12 episodes for the TV show, so I end up doing a lot of this. So far, I'm going mule deer hunting in Utah, archery mule deer, rifle mule deer hunting in Nevada, elk in Colorado, archery elk in New Mexico, Montana elk and deer because I get general tags here. And I got some friends who do some pretty decent tags. So we just never know what the year's going to look like until all the drawings are done. What's this guy say? Oh, you are running away from the circus. must be in reference to my prior comment. So, Tim, I don't know how we're doing here. My phone battery says that it's down to 10%. And my router has finally decided to behave itself, and that's when I start running out of phone battery. So I think I'm going to start wrapping up here and just leave it with a couple thoughts for all of you, and that is, these public lands are, in my mind anyhow, the most important legacy I'm going to leave my son, the most important passion that I have in my life, just because all that hunting, all that public lands have meant to me. And as greater and greater pressures are placed on society, I just worry that these lands, so the greater the pressure, the more value these lands have, the more value the lands have, the greater the temptation of politicians to try wrestle them away from the public. And I'm just not going to take it standing or sitting down. I mean, it's just who I am. And most of you watching, I would bet any money that every one of you feel the same way I do about these public lands. And here at my house where I'm standing, and you'll know that where the reference comes from, but whenever it's something really important to my wife and I, all we have to do is look at each other and say cold dead hands. And that goes from, Charlton Heston standing up saying, you can have these guns when you prime from my cold dead hands. And I'm a gun owner and I like my guns. But when it comes to these public lands, I tell every politician I encounter, cold dead hands. You can get these public lands maybe someday. But if I'm alive, you're going to have to pry them from my cold dead hands. And I think all of you feel the same way, or you wouldn't be tuned in tonight. you wouldn't be listening on our podcast. You wouldn't be out on our Hunt Talk website. It's just that important to me. I look at the backcountry hunter and angler guys. I look at all of the other groups that are often in collaboration with the backcountry guys. It just is, it's who we are. We're Americans, let's face it. You want any movement to take these lands from you or me or us, it's an anti-hunting movement. And any politician, any ideologue who tries to tell you it's anything other than anti-hunting, anti-access, anti-American, give them an earful, because that's what it is. I tell people the greatest anti-hunting effort of my generation is the effort to try screw you out of your public lands. I ain't doing it. I ain't going there. I ain't standing for it. I'm too old. I'm 51 years old. You know what? If my generation lets this fall by the wayside, we've failed. We've been complete and utter failures no matter what else we might accomplish in our lives. And I don't like to fail. So anyhow, I want to thank the backcountry hunter and angler folks. I want to thank all of you who tuned in. I want to thank all of you who will be listening to this on our podcast. And remember, these are your lands. These are your children's lands, your grandchildren's lands. And they're worth fighting for. Anything worth having is not only worth fighting to have, but fighting to protect and hand to the people who are going to come after us. So thanks for watching, folks. Become a member of the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. It'll be some of the best money you spend this year. How do we do this? Boy, my phone is about ready to blow up here. That thing is smoking hot. Done. Well, that ought to piss a lot of people off.